The story begins in Morpeth, a small market town in Northumberland, England. It's a peaceful place, surrounded by rolling green hills and ancient woodlands. But behind that calm beauty lies a history steeped in superstition, old curses, and whispered legends of things that prowl when the moon rises. For centuries, locals have spoken of a creature, not quite man, not quite beast, something that defies explanation. They call it the zombie werewolf. The first recorded encounter dates back to the late 1700s, during a particularly harsh winter. Villagers claimed to have seen a pale figure wandering through the snow-covered streets after midnight. It wasn't just the sight of the figure that terrified them, it was the sound. A low, guttural growl, mixed with what sounded like broken breathing, echoing from the woods. Those who saw it described a creature with rotting skin stretched tight over its bones, and eyes that glowed with a sickly yellow light. It moved like a wolf, but it stood upright like a man. Local folklore says the creature was once a man named Edward Mullen, a hunter who vanished one night while tracking wolves near the old Morpeth woods. Days later, his body was found, or at least what was left of it. His chest was torn open, and his face was unrecognizable. The villagers buried him quickly, fearing disease. But only a few nights later, strange things began to happen. The gravesite was found disturbed. Deep claw marks were carved into the frozen soil. Livestock began to vanish, and people started hearing howls that didn't sound quite animal or human. According to the old town records, several families abandoned the area that winter. A few who stayed told of seeing a figure lurking near their windows, pressing its face against the glass before disappearing into the fog. Dogs refused to go outside at night. Children woke screaming from nightmares, claiming they saw a dead man with wolf eyes staring at them from the trees. What makes this case even more disturbing is that the stories didn't end there. In the 1890s, nearly a century later, a group of railway workers reported an encounter near the Morpeth tunnels. They were laying track late in the evening when they heard scratching sounds coming from the darkness ahead. Thinking it was a wild animal, they shone their lanterns forward, and what they saw made one of the men drop his light. A figure, hunched and pale, covered in dirt and dried blood, crawled toward them. Its mouth hung open unnaturally wide, showing rows of broken teeth. Before they could react, it let out a horrible scream and vanished into the tunnel. Local police investigated but found nothing, except for deep claw marks etched into the stone walls. The story spread quickly, and once again, Morpeth gained a reputation for being cursed. Some claimed it was the ghost of Edward Mullen returned. Others believed it was something worse, a creature caught between life and death. Over time, the legend evolved. People began calling it the zombie werewolf, a name that perfectly captured its unnatural nature, something undead, yet animalistic. Cryptozoologists and paranormal researchers have since speculated about its origins. Some suggest it's connected to ancient pagan rituals once practiced in the region, involving animal transformations and dark resurrection rites. There are even claims that certain stones in the area are cursed markers, meant to trap evil spirits but somehow weakened over the centuries. In the 1970s, another sighting reignited the fear. A local farmer named George Hall reported losing several sheep in a single night. When he went to investigate, he found their carcasses drained of blood, with strange bite marks that didn't match any known animal. He told police he saw a large, shadowy figure moving across his field, hunched and limping, but incredibly fast. When he shined his flashlight, the creature turned toward him, revealing what he described as a face half human, half corpse. The authorities dismissed it as hysteria or wild dogs, but George's farm was abandoned shortly after. Many locals still refuse to go near the woods after sunset. They speak of cold spots, strange lights, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. One of the eeriest reports came from a group of teenagers exploring the area in the late 1990s. They claimed they were filming a short project when one of them spotted something moving in the distance. The video, later leaked online, shows a brief glimpse of what looks like a tall, emaciated figure with glowing eyes moving through the trees. Though skeptics call it a hoax, those who've analyzed the footage insist the creature's movement is unlike anything human. But the story of Morpeth doesn't end there. The region is home to other unexplained events. Strange lights hovering over the moors, phantom carriages on the old bridge, and reports of ghostly soldiers marching through the fog. Some locals believe all of these occurrences are connected, that Morpeth sits on a thin place, where the barrier between the living and the dead is weak. One chilling account comes from a nurse who worked in the area during the 1950s. She claimed to have seen a patient admitted with severe wounds, insisting he'd been attacked by a man with claws. The man died the next morning, but before he did, he whispered that the creature smelled like decay, and that its eyes were empty, like a grave. The hospital records for that case mysteriously disappeared years later. What makes the zombie werewolf story stand out from other legends is how consistent the descriptions are across different centuries. The glowing eyes, the rotting flesh, the human-like posture, all the details remain eerily similar, even from people who lived generations apart. Skeptics argue that it's a shared cultural myth, a way for people to explain the unexplained. But believers insist there's something real lurking in those woods. Some researchers even connect the Morpeth creature to older European legends of revenants, the undead who return from the grave not as mindless zombies, but as intelligent, vengeful beings. In medieval times, villagers would exhume bodies suspected of being revenants and stake them through the heart. There are records suggesting that such a ritual was once performed near Morpeth, though the location has been lost to time. Modern paranormal investigators have visited the area with thermal cameras, EVP recorders, and motion sensors. Many report strange readings, sudden temperature drops, unexplained noises, and growls captured on audio that don't match any known animal. One team claimed that their equipment malfunctioned whenever they approached the old burial ground said to be Edward Mullen's resting place. There's also the theory that what people are seeing isn't physical at all, but a manifestation of collective fear, a psychic echo of something terrible that once happened. Some suggest that Morpeth's energy itself is haunted, replaying fragments of its dark history. Yet for every logical explanation, there are stories that refuse to fit neatly into reason. One chilling tale tells of a traveler who broke down near Morpeth late at night. As he walked along the lonely road trying to find help, he noticed movement in the trees. A pair of glowing eyes followed him for nearly a mile. He described hearing the sound of bones cracking, as if something was shifting shape behind the tree line. When he finally reached the next village, his hands were trembling, and his face was pale. He told locals he saw a corpse with the body of a wolf, crawling toward him before it vanished. Even today, some residents claim to hear howls echoing across the fields on cold nights. The howls don't sound like wolves. They rise and fall in a pattern that seems almost human, filled with pain and rage. Whether it's a ghost, a cryptid, or something else entirely, the fear it inspires is very real. The zombie werewolf of Morpeth has become a symbol of the unknown, a creature that refuses to be categorized or dismissed. It's a story that captures the essence of true horror, the kind that doesn't rely on jump scares but on the deep, unsettling idea that something ancient and hungry still walks among us. And when you start to piece together all the other strange events in the area, the ghost sightings, the animal mutilations, the unexplained disappearances, it becomes harder to believe it's just coincidence. There's a pattern, a dark thread connecting them all, as if the land itself remembers something monstrous. Some locals say that if you ever visit Morpeth on a misty night, you might catch a glimpse of glowing eyes watching you from the tree line. Others claim that if you hear scratching on your window after midnight, it's already too late, because once the zombie werewolf marks you, it never forgets. Even skeptics who've visited the site admit that the atmosphere is heavy, unnervingly quiet, as if the woods themselves are listening. Strange shapes flicker in the fog, and the air feels colder than it should. Whether that's psychological or something more sinister is for you to decide. In the end, maybe the real terror of the Morpeth legend isn't the creature itself, but the question it raises: what if death isn't the end? What if there are things that claw their way back, half alive and filled with the rage of the grave? The idea that something could rise again, not as a ghost, not as a beast, but as both, that's what keeps this story alive, generation after generation. So next time you find yourself driving through the quiet countryside of northern England, and the road starts to disappear into the mist, remember the story of the zombie werewolf of Morpeth. Maybe it's just folklore. Or maybe, somewhere out there, something ancient is still waiting. If you've ever been to Morpeth or heard strange howls in the night, let me know what you think. Do you believe the stories are real, or just the echoes of fear passed down through time? Thank you for watching, and as always, stay safe, stay curious, and keep your lights on, because in places like Morpeth, the dead don't always rest.